Hello and welcome to another album Autopsy. In today's video we're going to take a look at the 2016 album To Be Everywhere Is To Be Nowhere by the American rock band Thrice. It will be their 9th album and the first following a 4-year hiatus for the band. They kind of felt like they were approaching a bit of a burnout phase after writing and touring extensively over the course of 13 years, needing some more time just to kind of spend with their family as they'd been kind of taken away from them over a number of years. As with most Thrice albums, there is a lot of heavy meaning in almost every album they have ever produced, and this album is certainly no exception. Most of the songs on To Be Everywhere Is To Be Nowhere touch on political, cultural and social themes. Also, the title of the album is derived from a quotation from Epistulae Morales ad Lucilium, or Letters from a Stoic, by the Roman philosopher Seneca the Younger, hence the interlude in this album actually being titled Seneca after him. One of the quotations from those letters is actually focusing more on the importance of being present in the moment you're in instead of being everywhere all at once. Seneca also suggested in his letters that it's better for one to sharpen one's focus on what is important than to divide one's attention between many things, which is definitely a throwback to the album. We can really see where the title of this album does come from, and this is going to influence a lot of the tracks going through it. So without further ado, let's take a look at it track by track. For the opening track, we do have Hurricane, a being of extreme power, extreme force, something that we can't always control, something that's just human nature and can strike at any time. This song references to kind of life, how we don't always prepare for the eventualities that may come. We just kind of live in the blissful moment, not expecting what could be around the corner. And some people aren't always able to handle the kind of negatives that come their way when they do strike, especially if they come with such force. And this is shown through the lyrics. I kissed your palms and we both laughed, so unaware of the gathering storm. This moment of bliss, not knowing what's round the corner. This is quite a vague lyric in the sense of it could apply to anything. It could be a very serious medical condition that could be diagnosed just maybe a month later. It could be a natural disaster, something that can just kind of strike out of the blue. So we have got this very heavy metaphoric kind of language used that can be generalized and kind of applied to a lot of different situations. The lyrics, it's gonna rain till the levee breaks and a tidal wave of fear and pain carries us away. So again, this negativity washing over you, these really hard times in life that you've got to try and kind of push through, that can turn your life upside down in an instant. Then at track 2 we do have Blood on the Sand, a song that focuses very heavily on politics. We've got the opening lyric, we wave our flags, we swallow fear like medicine, we kiss the hands of profiteers and their congressmen. So straight away we know exactly what this is about. Flags of the nation, people in power, the people above us, the people that kind of feel like they have to be everywhere, they have their hands in many pies is probably the best way to put it. It's also a very rebellious song in nature. We've got the following lyric, yeah, I've had enough and I'm not afraid to raise a shout to make it clear this has to end. And this is where the aggression of the album really does come in. This kind of almost, I'm fed up of the way things are in the world. I want to kind of raise my voice, shout and rebel and kind of make my voice heard and my feelings felt. And that's something that a lot of musicians love to do through their music. And that's certainly one thing that Thrice have done very, very well over the years. It can also go back to other areas such as racism and being treated unfairly. We panic at the sight of different coloured skin and we've got a plan to justify each mess we're in. So again, this idea being kind of built up of not being treated fairly, kind of inequality in the world, being judged based off natural characteristics. And it could also have a reference as well to elements such as the previous world wars, D-Day landings, blood on the sand, blood on the beaches of Normandy, which the whole world were fighting and everyone was kind of being at each other's throat. And that's what we kind of got here as well, the idea of these people in Congress kind of fighting each other to kind of claim more and more power. Then for track 3 we do have The Window. Now this is something that's used a lot in music as a very heavy metaphor. You can use a window as kind of peering into a different dimension or into a different kind of side of life, and that's exactly what this song does. Boarded up window, and it's true the gaps are patched, but even through the tiny cracks I feel the wind blow. The idea that someone's trapped in this negative space and they kind of want to, like, they can see all the positivity and all the great things outside, but they can't quite reach it. It's all been patched up, there's nothing they can do. Late in the night I lay awake, my eyes fixed on the window. Almost like you're fixated on this positive future, but you're not going to actually do anything actively to try and reach that point. We've also got other lyrics such as, and there's nothing I can say, there's no way I can prove that there's a place beyond this room. So again, this idea of being encaged, being trapped in one space. I mean, whether that's through your own limitations or whether it's because you're being held there by the powers above. So again, we've got this ambiguous meaning to this track, as we do see throughout most of this album. They can be taken in so many different ways, because although there is a heavy focus on American matters, for fans that are across the world, they can apply the meanings of these songs to different elements of their own life. Then for track 4, we have got another one that ties in very nicely with The Window in the form of Wake Up. Just a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. The idea that someone's just kind of waiting, just not really doing anything, lay here till the sun's gone to rest. You're just letting the hours, the days pass by. You're not really focusing on doing anything. You're just hoping that the good times are going to come. Similar to The Window, just kind of waiting for these opportunities to eventually roll by. This song's also very inclusive as well. Throughout the chorus, we do have we've got to wake up. Again, this use of we, not just one person, but we as a nation have to wake up. We've got to combat a lot of these matters and these things that are going wrong in our world. It's also done in a very aggressive manner as well, which is something that really kind of helps kind of add that power, that influence to that particular line, almost like it's being screamed at you, really trying to get that message across. We've really got to narrow our mind and focus on the matters that are right in front of us. Then at track 5, we have got quite a negative song in the form of The Long Defeat. The tyranny of deterioration worries me that it's all just a waste of time. The idea that you're kind of just giving up, you don't really have that power to kind of push through things. And we'll see this throughout other lyrics in the song. Suffering that I see all around, it's enough to keep me crashing down. And this goes back to the original part of the song, where this idea that we focus so much on what everyone else is doing that we don't always focus on what we can do ourselves. And this could be through social media or things like that. How often will you look at all your friends posting on social media that they're on holiday and suddenly you feel very negative because you're not doing what they're doing, even though they may only be posting about the best parts of their life? And it's straight away that idea that it's very applicable worldwide. Everybody's kind of in that same space. So there's many people that can kind of put themselves in such a negative place because they're so focused on the vast amount of things that other people are doing rather than just kind of putting themselves into those positions. They kind of just admit defeat to themselves and don't kind of go and chase, don't narrow their focus to achieve what they're looking for. Then towards the end of the song, we're kind of moving the focus back towards fighting it back against the people in power. And we've got so keep holding on to hope without assurance. And we've also got the lyric repeated, together we'll fight the long defeat. The idea that it might take time to get through this, but we'll get through it together. We'll all work as a unified unit to kind of push past the things that are holding us back. So again, uniting as one to kind of push ourselves forward. Then in at track number 6, we do have Seneca, which is an interlude track that is actually referenced to the inspiration behind the actual album, which I did mention a little bit earlier, in the form of Seneca the Younger, who was the Roman philosopher who did provide the inspiration for the album's title and many of the themes we do see throughout this album. Then in at track 7, we do have Black Honey, and this is a brilliant song. Anyone that's heard this will know just how great a song this is, not only just for its music but also for its meaning as well. Honey, something that's very naturally sweet, and then we've got this almost kind of black honey, this almost like there's something sweet that's been kind of corrupted. And this song is basked in ambiguity. You really kind of play it to so many different situations in so many different ways, which I really do love. I keep swinging my hand through a swarm of bees because I want honey on my table. And this could apply in a variety of different ways. It could be somebody who's very narcissistic in nature, very powerful, feels like they deserve everything. Someone who wants to be everywhere. They want to just really rule everything, and they feel that they deserve honey on their table because they have all this power, all this might. Somebody who's kind of almost willing to do anything to get the things that they want. Then we've got this lyric, I can't understand why they're stinging me. The idea that they're not really sure why they're being punished for trying to get the things they want. And that's the thing, certain things can sometimes have consequences, but sometimes we don't kind of focus on that. We just focus on purely getting our objectives. And this could be an idea of tying it in with like kind of hurting people along the way. People that kind of really put others down to get to where they want to be. They don't want to see the consequences of losing friends or kind of making themselves out to be a target or someone that's seen as not being very approachable. We've also got the lyric, I'll rip and smash through the hornet's nest, do you understand I deserve the best? So this is almost like someone from the top basically shouting down to the people below them, like, I deserve all this power that I have, you are nothing to me, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get to where I want to be. And again, with the kind of very heavy political influence of this album as well, that could also reference to American politics, the idea of kind of people really trying to push themselves forward, not really caring about who they trod on to get to that position of power. And again, this is shown towards the end of the song when we've got the lyric, they're following me across the sea and now they're stinging my friends and my family. So again, this again ties straight back into the idea of the negative consequences for your actions. Sometimes it can have a kind of drop down effect and affect those closest around you. But this is one song that really is applicable in a number of ways, and everybody can draw a different meaning from it. And although it is kind of all revolved around this person of power, this person that's kind of the strong-minded one that's willing to kind of do anything in their power to get to where they need to be and really just kind of put other people out of their way in doing so. Then coming in at track 8, we do have Stay With Me, a song that's almost very dystopian in nature. Would you stay with me if you thought the war was over? Kind of this idea that the world is going to eventually get to this breaking point where things are going to go really south and we're going to end up in a very kind of dystopian kind of world. And this is shown through a variety of the different lyrics. After the fever left, together we scavenged through the city and her scars. The idea that you have battle scars, that a city's going to show that. And again, focusing on the idea of potential world war and things like that, really negative connotations. And it doesn't even have to be on a global scale. Some streets certainly have more scars than others. The idea that there's always going to be conflict. We've also got talk of demons and the dark, chilling grief. But again, this could be kind of tying in with the title as well. We're so focused on the negative things happening in the world that we don't always think of the positive. And that's something that media feeds on. It's much easier to sell a negative story. We're much more invested in negative things happening in the world than we are in the positives. So again, sharpening our focus, stop focusing on the things that are going wrong in the world and kind of put some attention towards the things that are going right, which can be quite difficult at times, but something that certainly the band feel that more people need to do. At track 9, we do have Death From Above. Now this is actually a really interesting song because this is actually written from the perspective of a drone pilot, and it's the idea of kind of dropping bombs on places, causing mass devastation, and you're kind of the puppet master effectively. You're being controlled by somebody else and told what your objectives are and what you've got to do, but you're the one actually kind of taking lives or something like that rather than somebody else kind of taking the blame. You're kind of the scapegoat. And we've got that through the lyrics as well. I always thought that there was something different setting us apart, that I was led by men with sober minds and sympathetic hearts. So again, this idea that I'm being led by somebody, I'm just a puppet in a game. I swore an oath but never knew just what it was to take a life. So straight away this idea that you're coming from the perspective of the drone part and the band are putting you in that position through the use of the first person. Heading into the chorus, we've got the line, but I am never sure who I am killing, how many innocents were in the building. And this is something that is always discussed, casualties of war, how many innocent lives have to be lost in the pursuit of a certain objective. And this song also kind of deals with the idea of disassociation, kind of detaching yourself from your emotions and not being able to really truly understand, just kind of doing things without thought. Just targets on a screen, none of it's real. I drop death out of the sky. But this could also just be generalised again and tied in back with that narcissistic behaviour. Why do people harm the innocents around them in their pursuit of greatness? Then for track 10, we do have another song that is kind of focused more so on one particular matter in the form of Whistleblower. Now this song is actually about Edward Snowden, the man who leaked NSA documents proving that the government was spying on American citizens without warrant. Something that was very big at the time of this album's release. It was a very important topic that a lot of people were not very happy with, the fact that they've been being spied on, the fact that you're not aware always of what's going on. And that's the idea of kind of effectively sometimes being nowhere. Sometimes you're not aware of the things going on around you in the world because your focus is so spread amongst so many different things that you don't always hone in to exactly what is going on in your direct life. And some of these things you can never know, such as the Edward Snowden case and what was actually happening in the world in America at the time. But there are certain things that we can kind of avoid when we really narrow our focus our mind on one particular subject and kind of really take a deep look at what's actually happening in our world. I also love some of the lyrics in this particular track. Who made you judge and jury? Who gave you the axe and the hood? The idea of this executioner, or judge, jury and executioner. And again, we've got more metaphoric language throughout the chorus as well. I'll tell the real story. I'm the bird that sings. Birds used to be used as a way of transferring a message, kind of sharing information. So it almost has that historical element, which I kind of do like because that's tied tied in with the very historical influence that we did have from Seneca the Younger in the actual album itself. We've also got this switch between the first and second person as well. You told me keep it quiet, that I'd ruin everything, but I'd rather start a riot than help you pull the strings. So it's again this very rebellious behaviour, but we've kind of got this kind of back and forth, kind of almost like the whistleblower is talking to the people above him, saying I did this because I felt it was right. And this constant change in first and second person also is again very more inclusive, allows the listener to kind of feel like they're in the position that Ken Stew is trying to reimagine in his writing process. And one of the lyrics that really does tie in quite nicely as well with this particular track is waiting in the wings. We've got this idea of I'm the bird that sings, I'm waiting in the wings, again tying wings in with a bird. Everything really kind of fits nicely together for this particular track. They really have kind of tried to encapsulate everything in all the metaphoric language that is used, all these lyrics, tying in this idea of a bird being a messenger, someone that's kind of going to reveal the important information that is needed. Then rounding out the album we have got Salt and Shadow. Again, a very negative, there is a lot of negative connotation on this particular album. It is a very kind of, I wouldn't say miserable, but with its hard-hitting themes, they do need to kind of focus on that more negative side. They're really trying to hit out at some of the things that are going wrong in the world and kind of people's views as well, and that's what this song certainly does. The sky took its cue, every colour and hue on display, so straight away, sounds very positive, very kind of promising. Then we've got till thick veils of indigo signalled the end of the day, but each landscape that lies in the mirror of your eyes turns to grey. The idea that someone's kind of so focused again on this negativity in the world that they're not really focusing on the positive things that are going on, really hammering that message home. And it can be quite difficult at times when there's certain things going on in the world that really do draw those negative emotions out. Certainly since the release of this album, the world going through the COVID pandemic, it has been hard at times to kind of really focus on the positives. But again, it's just that's what this album wants you to do. It wants to kind of tell you to stop trying to be so broad, stop trying to be everywhere and really focus on what's going on in your own life. We've also got other lyrics in this song that could kind of go back to the idea of the way the world has evolved, the use of social media, the fact that people don't always live in the present. They're living in a almost dream world, they're living in the digital world, not focusing on what's actually happening around them. This can be shown through the lyrics, you're just salt and shadow here half a world away. Also, you're here but you're nearly a hologram, almost like you're not focused on what's going on around you. So this is a song that really kind of pulls in that idea of the rise of social media and how people just don't really pay attention to what's happening in the real world at times. Overall, this album really is packed full of meaning, and we can take it away in so many different ways. With so much focus on social, political and cultural themes, there really is something different for every single person that does listen to this album. We do see a lot of the songs focus on American politics. We also see a lot of songs kind of revolving around the idea of people in power and kind of really kind of stepping on the people below them. But we've also got the idea in some songs as well as how it can be our inability to kind of look at what's actually happening around us and kind of spending so much time in a digital world that we're not focused too much on the present. So really there is something different for every single person on this album, and it goes back to the idea of the title, to be everywhere is to be nowhere. Sometimes we can stretch ourselves so thin on so much data, so many things that we don't narrow our perspective to focusing on just us and work kind of progressing ourselves. So that's everything for today's video. Please do feel free to let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are and what meanings you draw from some of the songs on this album. It really is packed full. I think every different person will draw from it in a different way. And if you want to see more content like this, then do feel free to subscribe, and I will see you in the next album autopsy.